Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Path to Cloud. How ready are you? My name is Jordan Future Burmeister. I'm our marketing manager over here at Elire. And before we get into today's presentation, we're just going to go over a couple of housekeeping items. A reminder, everyone is placed on mute for the duration of the presentation. If you do have any questions for the panelists, feel free to send them in the chat to panelists or in the Q&A function at the bottom right of your screen. Today is going to be recorded, and we will have that recording available both on Elire.com as well as on our Elire Inc. YouTube channel. We are also going to have a few polls today that require your participation. This allows us to cater future webinar content as well as answer any questions that you may have, so please participate in those as they come. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason McCabe.
Thank you, Jordan. Today's presentation, we are going to go through some introductions for myself and Arjun, who I'm co-presenting with, talk about organizational readiness for cloud and how your organization can do some steps now to get ready for that transformation you'll be undergoing potentially at some point in the future. And then some implementation best practices to really reinforce that readiness and ensure you have kind of thoughtfully made that transition when it comes time. And then we'll kind of give you some next steps and ideas on what you can do to take today and kind of run with that. First, a little bit about Elire. If this is one of the first webinars you've attended of ours, we were established in 2005, so we're celebrating our 15th year of business. We really strive to work with partnering with our clients, making sure we're making thoughtful decisions and what makes sense from a software investment standpoint. So we focus that way. We're looking to provide guidance for core business processes and improvement. We're a very big believer in methodology and following the process, and then really looking to unlock that software potential through investments, making sure you're maximizing ROI. We have a deep relationship with Oracle, currently a gold partner, and we really have a mission of being a trusted advisor to our clients, establishing long-term relationships that we've continued to grow with over the last 15 years of our existence. A little bit more about myself. I joined Elire back in 2011. On the PeopleSoft team at that time, we do have practices across all Oracle products. A few years ago, I helped transition and build our cloud team. So now I manage all the cloud delivery for ERP, financials, procurement, supply chain, and performance management. And then a little bit about Arjun.
Hi, everyone. This is Arjun Krishna Prasad here. I'm a cloud solution architect with Elire. I started my career as a technical consultant implementing Oracle E-Business Suite and later moved on to Oracle Cloud, focusing on strategy, design, and implementation.
Great. Thank you, Arjun. So now we're going to drive into organizational readiness for cloud. So what does that mean? Well, Elire views all companies with a couple steps that need to take before an implementation could start. The first with the question of, are you prepared? And that means, have you made a thoughtful decision about what your future looks like, which investment in software you're going to make, and how that's going to look and feel, and what's the process to get there? And then, are you ready? So you've made the decision, but what have you done to prepare for that? And what things have you considered, and research have you done, and have you looked critically at your organization? You know, we're a big believer that technology is not going to solve all problems for your organization, and really thinking critically about processes and improvement and aligning to those software solutions is going to help you really maximize that investment in them. So kind of taking the steps to prepare. That's what today's going to be about. So where are you right now? So we're going to open up with a poll question to get a better sense of our audience and what kind of initiatives have undergone with, you know, some of the people on the call today.
Thank you, Jason. So we have, where are you at in your cloud journey? Not started, with no plans, not started but have a plan in place. Maybe you're mid-implementation, you're live on cloud but looking for more value, or you're live on cloud and love it. Give everyone about 30 seconds here. And we're going to go ahead and close this out. It looks like we have some that have not started and don't have any plans currently, as well as some attendees here that are live on cloud, but looking to gain more value from their cloud solution.
Okay, that is great. So definitely going to be applicable to that 40% that are not started yet or looking to make plans, because this will give you some ideas on how to go about doing that. From what we see in talking to customers and from our experience, are some of the right reasons and the right time for an organization to look for this transformation project. Looking to reduce IT infrastructure technology costs, again, keeping that spend down. Agile workplace, as we know with this day and age and where we all are needing a kind of a mobile work environment to be able to be at home. Is your organization prepared for that? Do you have applications that are manageable from remote locations? Obsolete or legacy applications that need to be retired is another great reason to look at this. And then looking to centralize operations, ERP or enterprise software, HCM, SCM, has a lot of functionality that works together so you can transact end to end seamlessly through a centralized process. Has a lot of value with IT, not requiring as much support and staff to manage all of those different applications that you have in your organization. And then the right time. As technology is changing and improving, your organization should be looking to take advantage of that to improve processes, reduce manual transactions so you can become more analytical and more agile. Support for applications you might own. You need to reduce that risk there from your vendors. So it's another time to look for making a transition. Organizational restructuring with business activity, combining entities is a good time to think about these kind of things. And then looking to make improvements to your transactions and operational efficiencies. These are just some examples of what we see are in the marketplace and why other companies are making these considerations. When you look at Oracle and how they produce the application, they have tailored it to be what they call an Oracle modern best practice. And they focus on the word modern because it is taking advantage of new technologies that are coming out in the marketplace. The whole push to cloud computing, mobile analytics, really drove that first wave of moving to cloud applications, self-supporting, self-maintaining. And now there's new technologies in the industry like blockchain and AI and VR that are driving that other ways for practices to become more efficient and more improved. They want to have a practice that takes transactions for typical business operations that can take advantage of that to really help customers streamline operations, become more efficient, and really focus on what they have as needs for their companies. There's a lot of great content that Oracle's producing about this that I really recommend you take a look at, and how they define a business process, and thinking about how your organization transacts for the same transaction is going to be important for these transformations. So what is your journey going to look like? How are you going to start? I love to talk when we have these conversations to think of a blank whiteboard, because with a cloud implementation, it really could be the last upgrade or implementation your company might have to go through. A cloud is a self-supporting, self-updating solution. All of the new features and functionalities that Oracle is going to release quarterly, you will be able to adopt and take on right away. There's no downtime from that perspective. So you want to be thoughtful and mindful as you do this implementation to make sure we set this up for your organization now and for the future. So there really is no one way, but it does require analysis and thoughtful decisions about what makes the most sense for your organization. So definitely think of it as a fresh start, but make sure it makes sense for what your organization wants to take on, and thoughtfully think through that.
Phases, starting with move to cloud. This involves changing your manual disconnected legacy systems to a full suite cloud application, which is both future ready and incorporates modern best practices. A streamlined business process becomes the backbone of your transformation. The next phase would be to optimize your cloud capabilities with analytics. Analytics leverages historical data and provides some meaningful insights. It focuses on identifying trends, outliers, and gives you predictive analysis, cause and effects. Enhanced data analytics can be used to better understand and improve business performance. The final phase would be to advance your digital capability with emerging technologies. Some examples are AI, Internet of Things, machine learning, and blockchain. Using chatbots is a very popular use case for high impact areas for an enterprise. Now let's focus on some key aspects for phase one transformation. For the best practices for your cloud implementation means having the right strategy for business process redesign, change management, data conversion, integrations, reporting, and security, starting with business process redesign.
So business process redesign is it's a tough thing to take on because it requires thoughtful change and your organization critically thinking about how things are done now and why. So we recommend having a strategy in place and a methodology to follow for moving through that process thoughtfully and strategically, thinking about your future state and what your organization is looking to accomplish. So some key factors and key constraints for doing a business process redesign initiative. We recommend with cloud-based software, let the software drive the process design. I mentioned a bit ago about how Oracle is building cloud related to modern best practices. So looking at those best practices and how they are going to work and operate and tailoring your business process around that is going to help set you up for success and eliminate gaps in your requirements. We recommend cross-functional mapping and getting the most detail you can out of those exercises because that's going to give you a better set of requirements and solutions for during the design phase of your project. And then really build alignment on your guiding principles and what the purpose of the initiative is, and make sure everyone agrees to that from the start. Now, what are key constraints that are going to impact this process negatively? We find a lot of issues with stakeholders missing knowledge of the future state process, not taking the time to understand that you know what the solution you're looking at offers and how that works is going to hinder your ability to accurately drive future state. Resistance to change is something that is definitely going to need to be mindful of for the project. We're going to talk about change management in a minute, but that is something that comes up here during process redesign as we're changing how things are done today. And then a lack of vision and not understanding of the future. So we recommend for business process redesign, making sure you have stakeholders that have that thought and that desire for this, for the future state, and then also make sure that the full team is aware and in agreement that this is the best strategy for it. Because if you don't have alignment top to down and end to end on your processes, it's going to be very hard for the implementation of that change. The next strategy to look at and make sure you define for your cloud implementation is change management. Now, change management for Elire involves training, communication, and the change management process. It should start right away with your project and your implementation team with dedicated resources that can thoughtfully work through your organization and make sure things are heavily communicated, thoughtfully created in your training content and library, and communicated early and often for what's happening with this project. Now, what are some key principles and key constraints here for change management? Well, again, training communication is really part of this change management process, and having dedicated resources for that to manage it during the project is going to be very important. Training should not be a one-time event. It can't be given to every user base one time in a training session, expect people to be ready. Think about the 5 moments of truth, and we can provide some more information on that, and design your training plan around that to make sure your user base is prepared for the future. And then information needs to be repeated. The first time you hear something does not mean it's going to be retained and understood, and that information should be repeated multiple times in a different formats throughout the project to be successful. Finding different channels like email, verbal, town halls, newsletters. Different channels is important because it lets people see the same information different ways to help them digest and understand what is being presented to them. Key constraints with change management on a cloud implementation we've seen is really that people underestimate the amount of work and the amount of resources required to properly do training and communication, depending on the size of your organization, obviously, but it's really not prioritized correctly from what we've seen with some of our clients. So really make sure you get people's attention and understand that the amount of work is there and that people need to understand what's happening for your future state. And then sometimes there's just people have to deal with too much change, and that can be overwhelming and stressful. So that needs to be considered during this project to say, what else is going on with our company that might be impacting our user base that we need to also fight with people's attention for and make sure people are prepared for this future state we're moving towards. So again, these are key principles and constraints that we've seen and like to highlight for clients thinking about these transformation initiatives with an Oracle Cloud solution.
Data conversion. It's important to start thinking of data conversions as early as possible in your implementation. Focusing on what the end state looks like will help you determine your scope, prepare, extract, and load data. Few things to consider while defining the scope are data sources, types of transaction, whether you want to load top-up stack or partial or full historical data, and the volume of data. As you prepare, you need to analyze the data, identify scenarios, map the fields, and finalize the tools for data extraction. For the extraction program itself, write modular code based on the various components within your conversion, finalize validation and transformation logic, and determine a transfer mechanism for the data files. Load is more an iterative process. It involves staging, loading, fixing errors, and reconciling data. Some key factors of conversion strategy are aligning conversion timeline with the overall project plan. It's key to make sure that you align your conversions with your project plan and make sure that you're able to deliver your data into your cloud system to make sure you're able to test the data for your functionality. Finalizing your conversion scope early on in the project. Making sure you have a pod strategy, especially in multiple projects where you have data dependencies. The data in the legacy system, agreed and approved data cleansing process, and users for validation. Now moving on to some few constraints to keep in mind while defining your conversion strategy. Availability and quality of data in your legacy system is one of the key constraints that we face in most of the implementation. The infrastructure to code the extraction program, the time and resource for data analysis, cleansing, and reconciliation. Next, moving on to integrations. For your integration strategy, you start with the interface inventory. You identify the interface inventory in your current state, define your end state, determine your scope, prepare, develop, and then move on to your testing phase. In your end state, determine the future state architecture. Plan for interim solution until you reach your end state. Put a timeline for decommissioning legacy applications and related integration. Few things to consider while defining your scope are the integration patterns, whether you want changes only or full file, whether you need to add any additional information from other systems, types of transaction, the volume, and the schedule of the integration. As you prepare, you need to finalize the appropriate tool, engage application owners, write functional specification, map fields, list the test cases, and create a sample data for your testing. Key activities during your development are the integration tracking, unit testing, the orchestration of the integration, security, and having a standardized error mechanism tool. Internally for your testing, it's more an iterative process of functional validation, identifying issues, and fixing the code. From a system integration standpoint, vendor and end system validation and sign-off becomes a critical aspect to keep in mind. So for your integration strategy, Here are some guiding principles to keep in mind while you put it together. Assigning the right integration pattern, utilizing out-of-box capabilities, incorporating adequate level of security at all stages of your data transmission, standardizing your error handling and notification, determining your integration tracking mechanism, and accounting for performance on your production load. More often than not, you end up using a sample test data, but your performance varies when you move into your production instance. So it's important to make sure that you account for the volume and make sure that your integration runs in a similar fashion how you expected it to work in your cloud system. There are some key factors as you put your integration strategy together. Some of them are aligning the integration timeline with overall project plan. This is very similar to your conversion strategy as well. More often than not, what happens is that you end up having a conversion strategy, an integration strategy, and an overall project plan that is only based on your functional and system configuration. It's important for all of them to come together. So make sure your integration and conversion strategy line up to your project plan. Finalizing the integration inventory early on in your project. Configuring the application modules right at the time when you want to do your different testing phase. Prepare the test data for your unit and integration testing, and identify environments needed for your integrating applications. When you meant by integrating applications, your end vendor system needs to have those environments to make sure that they get your test data during your system integration test and make sure they're able to validate them. On to reporting strategy. For your reporting strategy, start with your organization reporting requirements by defining your end state, identifying your scope, preparing, developing, and determining the right operational model for your organization. In your end state, focus on managing the accuracy of the data using the right technology, access, and security. Few things to consider while defining the scope are consolidation of existing reports, history, types of transaction, and where the data is coming from. As you prepare, you need to finalize the appropriate tool, engage business users, gather your reporting specs, and map the fields and list a set of test cases so that you can make sure your reports are running the way you want it to. In your development phase, consider leveraging Oracle Cloud out-of-box reporting capabilities. Create the right layout, use appropriate subject areas, and test. For your day-to-day operations, establish guidelines for maintaining your reports, end-user support, the security around the reports, and enhancements to your reports. A few guiding principles for your reporting strategy are defining your data governance, using delivered reports and cloud functionality, utilizing the right tools for reporting needs, utilizing reports from Cloud Customer Connect, developing a reporting team strategy, and report organization. What is report organization? This involves two aspects: designing your reports and user profiles based on your business needs, and classifying reports to manage accessibility and security. So it's important to follow some of these guidelines to have a good reporting organization and people are able to access the right report at the right time. Finally, moving on to security strategy. While devising your system security, you need to ask the question, who can do what on which set of data? That is, who are your users? What privileges will they have on which set of data? There are two primary types of roles. Both control the function a user can perform and where within the application they have access. Starting with abstract role. An abstract role is nothing but the people in your organization. It is independent of the jobs that they perform. An employee or a line manager is an example. Job role represents the jobs that the users perform in an organization. An example would be a HR specialist, an account payables manager, or a payroll manager. These are some of the job functions within an organization. Security profiles are used to define what data can be accessed by users in that specific assigned role. So when you combine this security role with an abstract role or a job role, it gives you a data role that determines the overall access to the system from a user's perspective. Some guiding principles to follow for your security strategy. Incorporating security in your design right from the beginning, assigning security profiles directly to your abstract roles, creating custom job roles and applying security profiles to them, limiting your custom roles, and considering personalizations wherever possible to restrict access. And that wraps up our key implementation best practices for your cloud readiness.
Thanks, Arjun. So before we wrap up, we do have a quick second poll here for everyone. Now that we've mentioned all these different strategies, which strategies are you struggling with? Reporting, security, business process redesign, conversions, change management, integrations, or for those of you who maybe haven't started or it's not applicable, there are those options as well. Give everyone just a couple seconds here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close it out here. Looks like specifically we're having some struggles around reporting, business process redesign, conversions, and change management. So a little bit all over the place, as well as for those of you who haven't started your cloud journey yet, a couple not applicable there.
Thank you, Jordan. So with a few minutes left, just to conclude, really important to establish these strategies for your organization. Now, we've been focusing from the perspective of preparing for the cloud transformation. For those of you already on cloud, a lot of these things like security, reporting, integrations, business process design can be reworked and rethought after an implementation to really optimize your Oracle Cloud environment. So some things to think about are revisiting topics where you have pain points and things that are hindering your operational excellence to become more efficient and more, agile in that process. So some things to think about. For those of you interested in more information, please reach out to us. We have some supporting documentation written up. We'd love to keep the conversation flowing about these topics. Arjun and I are very passionate about them, and we love to keep that conversation and dialogue flowing. So check out the Elire blog. We have a bunch of posts about Oracle Cloud out there. Stay engaged with the Quest Oracle community. Check out Oracle Customer Connect if you are already on Oracle. We would definitely recommend that collaboration tool and find a lot of value in participating in that. We will be a part of the Collaborate 2020 virtual booth. We'll be on there from May 28th to June 17th. Come check us out. We'll have subject matter experts available for both on-prem and cloud applications of Oracle. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We do have a bunch of other webinars going on through our Elire Learning Lab series, so please feel free to check them out. A lot are cloud focused, and you can see the link here about where you can find more information for them. Due to time constraints, we don't have enough time for answering questions on this webinar, but if you have something you'd like more information on or a question to ask, please put it in the chat and we will follow up with you. And then thank you everyone for attending our webinar today. Please feel free to reach out to Elire on all of our various social media platforms, or feel free to contact myself or Arjun with questions for more information. We are definitely going to be available for that. So look forward to hearing from you. Everyone stay safe out there. Have a great afternoon and a wonderful day.